Machine-manufactured expectations. I am blunt at times for a reason. In such days as these, the essential need for authenticity and transparency is at a premium. The failure of traditional means of piercing the veil of noise, the mundane which lures to sleep, and the serpentine machinations designed to keep people embroiled in confusion, fear, and false expectations, casts a long shadow upon those who hide in it. Having been taught wrongly that conformity to it is somehow more prudent and wise, these same ones are taught to wear masks to reflect the banality of whitewash expectations projected upon them by something, they've never considered might actually be the very thing that robs them of their true purpose and identity. For the counterfeit is crafty indeed at rhetorical similitudes that seem right and true when their nature is anything but. They are but pale moonlight, shadows of the real. These illusionaries first attempt to dissuade questioning of its validity and superior positions of power, and feigned imaginings as well. Then they attempt to dazzle and shock, with awe meant to subtly force you back into the darkness of its engineered mirages and dominating machines. Yes, I said machines. The co-opted and falsely contexted institutions and one-sided expectation-driven systems of homogeneous humanity. One can clearly see this in regards to how both creativity and creative use of language are frowned upon in the machine-manufactured systems of academia, religion, business, and government, even when they have worn out the original meanings of words and worn them down to pale shadows of their once definitive weightiness. You see, they hide their pride and intents in this bastardizing usage of words, redefined to suit their cultic self-deception and view of themselves, and those who have been captured by their false light. True innovation is replaced with shallow novelty and lurid applications. Yes, it is true. In this world, the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations have long been held captive by the ever-corrupting illusioneering of the temporary. It has been so since ancient times. The false light of the projective and unquestionable expectations have long been ruled by the machinations of a lifeless moon. Being authentic has far too long been discouraged and slandered by the ignorant, inauthentic, and fearful who hide behind the expectations of others, which they reflect like that moon, like moonlight upon others who do not conform to that which they themselves have chosen to or were forced to bend a knee to. You see, they miss their deeper value in doing this and corrupt their possibilities by projecting those untested and unquestioned expectations from others upon still more others. Others who are free from the constraints they are themselves chained to. You see, contrarians have always been seen as outliers, mavericks, as potential threats. And they are because they defy the zeitgeist of their times and prevail over it by exposing its corruptions and fallacies. And how do they do this? Well, they do it in the light of the truth. This is why the false pale moonlight of the inauthentic sees them as their enemy. The false light of tyranny. The tyranny of the false light expectations, which characterizes all temporal societies, are the same which are seen in those societies which have the most extreme or autocratic ones. You see, they share traits. There's a reason they fear losing their illusions of control and power. It is because they are actual slaves to their own self-deception and lies. Slaves to the lies which cast them into the darkness that enslaved them in the first place. This is why they seek to co-opt and dominate all that the living create. This is why they seek to deceive and enslave the living to their realm of the dead, and replace the authentic with shadowy counterfeits. They do so to devour others in the same way that a lie must have the existence of truth to dismantle, to distort, and corrupt in order to fashion its false identities as being authentic and true. Yet it is still a lie. Both the lie and the dead are only given power by enslaving the living to themselves by deception. So too it is for the authentic when it is ceded to that which is not. It is this that you are living in when those around you try to get you to cede your rights, your freedoms, and liberties to a counterfeit, meaning that they try to get you to bend a knee to them, which is a de facto making you to bend a knee to a lie, the very lie they are themselves a slave to. Is this not a characteristic of the nature of war as well? It is so because it is the essence of war that is deception, the deception of the deceivers. The nature of war is to deceive and gain the advantage over one's adversary and triumph over them. One might say, how can we then live in a world characterized by war and have any measure of victory against one's adversaries without deceiving them, without deception? Well, it's a fair enough inquiry. I will begin my address on the issue by asking you a question. How do you deceive a deceiver? Well now, you deceive them by allowing them to believe their own lies, which they have already deceived themselves by. You allow them to think that they are successful by giving them the leeway to build up their own pride to the point where they expose themselves in their own actions and decisions, thereby making a case for your action against them or support of those who must take action on your behalf. This is why I say that pride always comes before a fall, as surely as the night comes before the day, and the day before the night. The moon chases the sun across the dome of the heavens, never catching it. The only light the moon has is that which it reflects from the sun, which it is forever chasing. Likewise, the deceiver is always chasing the light of the truth, yet has no light of its own but that which is reflected back in false light. You see, the symbolism of the moon eclipsing the sun is an ancient cosmic metaphor. It's a metaphor for complete and total self-deception. For the moon has one half facing the sun and is truly illuminated, externally, of course. And the earth side of the moon is in complete darkness, except for the cycles by which the moon goes through, reflecting the light of the sun. So what is exposed? Well, this exposes the truth of the appearances of the moon, and the moon being a metaphor. So let's dive into that a little deeper. You see, the moon's light is merely a reflection of the sun, which is still evident from Earth, and the corona of the sun appearing around the moon during an eclipse. Now, what did I say? You should know that word well by now. A corona appearing around the moon during an eclipse. You see, some ancient people saw the corona as the crown of the moon god. They did not understand that it was still the light of the sun. They were seeing the crown of the sun, not the moon. They were ignorant of these things we so flippantly take for granted now. Yet we, in all of our technological progress, still do the same thing in different ways. Do we not look at the external appearances of others and assume that we know the essence of others, never thinking to look past the outward appearances. If the appearance meets our personal preferences and confirmation biases, well, our desires is to say it is good. If it does not, we call it evil. We see it as a threat, and sometimes we even want to destroy it. Is this not judging a book by the cover? What if those appearances are darkened by machinations, sadness, false reflections of the perceiver who, having projected themselves upon the person, demand that others be complicit with their own self-deception? Is that not deceiving the deceiver? By turning them over to their own self-deception and their own distorted perceptions, giving it to them their own way. As it is for the moon eclipsing the sun and basking in the light of the sun, thinking the sunlight is actually its own, so too it is for people and nations who do the same thing. That is why we call it lunacy. A moon named Lunacy and the sun of righteousness. The tyranny of personal preferences, false assumptions, false expectations, and autocratic subjectivism is the single biggest threat to human freedom and flourishing for all. In fact, it is a form of lunacy. Now, what does the word lunacy actually mean? Well, the definition is the state of being a lunatic, meaning insane. There are many synonyms for it: insanity, madness, mental illness, derangement, dementia, dementedness, insaneness, loss of reason, unsoundness of mind, mental instability, mania, frenzy, and the list goes on. Psychosis, you name it. Likewise, the archetype of the moon is a metaphor of deception and false light, which is where the word lunacy, the Ugaritic pantheon, in the Mesopotamian religion. It comes from Luna, or lunar. The moon was worshipped in ancient times as the god Sin, that being the chief of the gods and goddesses as the Babylonian moon god. It is to this period we must trace such designations of the word Sin, which was considered the father of the gods. Ironically, in my worldview, that is false light. And what it means is the father of lies and the deceiver. So how does one discern between what is authentic and what is a deception? Well, the short answer begins with you. Know thyself. In seeing how you are in the light of the truth, the veil lifts on how you not only deceive yourself, but deceive others, and are deceived by others as well. The truth does indeed set you free. It grants you active discernment. However, most prefer this. They refuse this, and they deny their own fallibility to fortify their own self-deception in their own pride. For that reason, they remain slaves to a lie and see any threat to that lie as being worthy of destruction, because anything that challenges their fragility and their false light is anathema to them. So I ask you this: would you prefer me to bend to your wishes and reflect back to you only what you wish to see and hear now, knowing that it would only ultimately be your undoing? Yet that is precisely what your society and its systems often demand, is it not? And what of your corporations and governments? And what of your peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations combined? What of your organizations? How's that working for you now? Isn't this the age of the coronavirus? The clouds, which are my own immortal coils, are at times like a cloud that hides the sunlight. This still works to my advantage and the loss of those who are my enemies and adversaries. I was once darkened externally by the very things I now expose in your societies and its systems. As it is said, no weapon fashioned against me shall prosper. For all that is done against me and those like me only strengthens us and exposes your world of darkness, even as it frees us more as we are humbled in the process and strengthened internally. It also strips you of your power and increases ours. I went dark for a time to grant exactly to so many what they thought they desired, to have their way. However, their way is the broad way of deception, division, and destruction. This is clearly seen in every recycling of imperial dark dreams. You have many among you who will only see what they wish to see and hear only what they wish to hear, regardless of what you are seeing, and without a care for whether it is factual, true, or not. This is why your world and its peoples and nations are in a tumult. It is also why I often say that only the truth and love will bring about justice and mercy from a humble and contrite heart. But why humble and contrite hearts? Well, only in humility are you able to admit your wrongs and seek to be rescued from them and learn from them. And what of contriteness? Well, contriteness means to feel deep remorse one has done something wrong. You see here that both are unified in purpose and outcomes. They are connected in this manner. Only in humility are you willing and able to see the error of your ways and truly feel genuine remorse. Only by the light of the truth is the rightness or wrongness of one's thoughts and actions exposed to you, that you may regret that which you have done and earnestly seek to make restitution and learn the lesson offered by it in grace. Authentic grace is a verb. Grace is an active agent of love which allows you to see what you have done and be freed from both its guilt and shame, having taken responsibility for it, and learn the lessons it offered in the light of truth. For this brings us to justice and mercy. Only in seeing one's mistakes and how they affect others can justice be done at the same time. Mercy offers you the opportunity to learn from it. Make amends where is possible, and offer those lessons learned to others. Only in seeing oneself as you truly are can you see others more as they truly are, in the humility of your own insufficiencies, which prompts you to be dispensers of grace freely to others as it was done for you. Likewise, the truth and love grants you the discernment to render both justice and mercy in a manner that does not violate any of them while remaining humble and contrite in heart. These are all one. None of them can be what they truly are without the others being what they are individually and collectively. For they are, in fullness, indivisible, yet distinct in their specific purpose and context. Here you see the concept of the unity of distinct things, all perfectly unified as one. This is what the phrase e pluribus unum means. Out of many, one. Out of many peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations, we become one nation. Not in a superficial manner, but from the inside out. Here wherein we must look at the concept versus the reality. You see, the reality is that we are far from being one in heart and mind. For only God Almighty, by the power of the Spirit of truth, can accomplish such a miraculous thing. E pluribus unum was a hope against hope for was. Something that was already in the idea, though not yet, in the hearts and minds of the people. This nation was born in that hope and maintained that hope in varying degrees throughout its history. Even so, the e pluribus unum is something which was never supposed to be forged by the works and wisdom of mortal beings, but rather to be trusted to God Almighty to accomplish by His wisdom and the works of His Spirit and in His timing according to His will. That cannot be so apart from truth. That cannot be made so apart from the truth in love, bringing about justice and mercy from humble and contrite hearts, the hearts and minds of the people. You see, only in this way can the unity of the many become one and be made manifest in and through each person and collectively together. Such a transformational process is far beyond that of the means and methods of intellect and human works. It is born in and of the divine Logos, which must first bring about the birth, that birth of the new creation, that it might rise from the shell of the old, which was but the chrysalis. The chrysalis and the transformational storybooks. A chrysalis, or nympha, is the pupal stage of butterflies. The term is derived from the metallic gold coloration found in the pupa of the butterflies, referred to by the Greek term Christos, or gold. When the caterpillar is fully grown, it makes a button of silk which it uses to fashion its body to a leaf or a twig. Then the caterpillar's skin comes off for that final time. Under this old skin is a hard skin called a chrysalis. Just as the old nature acts as the chrysalis for the birth of the new nature, so too the old order of things must pass away, that the new order of things might emerge. As it is for people, so too it is for nations. Just as the fire burns away the dross, leaving nothing but the pure gold, so too the fires of trials and tribulations come to burn off the impurities within and transform both the individual and the many peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations, leaving nothing but the gold of truth and love and justice and mercy from humble hearts forged in the unquenchable fires of God Almighty. For in this way, all are unified in and by the Spirit of truth and love as distinctive parts fit together to form one singularity, out of many, one. The death of the old makes way for the birth of the new. Likewise, it is for both people and nations. The testing of the peoples, tribes, and nations is the fire which comes to make fertile what was previously desolate. Those desolations served two purposes. One, to expose the true nature of things and burn off the dross, leaving the unified remnant who are made strong in the truth in the process, that they might be agents of truth, love, justice, and mercy. Now in all truth and love this is made so. For this is the means by which the mountain of the Lord is raised high above all the others. It is upon and in and from this mountain the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations are judged and rewarded. The mountain of the Lord is a place and a people, just as a nation is both a place with definitive boundaries and a people of peoples, even as the book of life is a book of books. Every single person born is a book. Every book has a story. Not all stories are good stories. Some are bad. This world judges the books by their covers, being the outward appearances. However, God judges a book from the story written upon its pages. All of history is a meta-narrative, a book of books, just as the Bible is a book of books written by many different people, yet unified by the author of all who works them all together as one. There again, you have the e pluribus unum, ideal. Can you understand what I'm revealing to you? Do you have eyes to see and ears to hear these words? The living book of the genuine e pluribus unum. I am a book. By reading this writing, you are in fact becoming part of my story, and I am part of yours. My story is not your typical one, nor are those who take the time to become part of my story and grant me the honor of being a part of theirs. This is how authentic relationships are formed. As stories woven together in a great tapestry we call a meta-narrative. All of humanity are in this grand meta-narrative. However, not all of humanity will choose to remain in it. For their story is one which denies the meta-narrative in favor of attempting to write their own apart from the truth of these words. They are known even to write themselves out of the very meta-narrative which they deny exists in favor of living on and for the book covers, which is the chrysalis devoid of the transformation inside it. For this reason, they are burned up by the fire which comes to test them, along with all their works and the things that they make. For only those with the fire of the truth within can be sustained through the fire which tests them. Having denied that truth within, they have denied the fire of the light of the truth, which could sustain them through the fiery testing which comes for all. Thusly, they are and will be burned up in the fires thereof. Now I know these words may seem politically incorrect and offensive to many. However, I say what many wouldn't dare say for fear of reprisal or loss of reputation. Even so, I say these things because I fear none of those transitory mirages. I am gloriously perfect in my imperfections, which grants me license to learn from my mistakes and my successes in ways which adds to the richness of life and understanding far beyond that offered to me by the shadows of the real. Those who are offended by this are offended by anything that they do not understand or want to understand. You see, many prefer the illusion of safety in the chains of their lies. These are those who reside in the shadows of the real because they fear what others might see in the actuality of being real. Some will break free from it when their time to do so has come. That time often comes through those who have already gone before them and have emerged from their identities being in the old nature of the chrysalis, having been born into the new creation. They were transformed inside of the chrysalis and became a new creation. Others will have suddenly a moment of clarity like a flash of lightning which exposes what was previously hidden in the darkness, freeing them from what they could not see, nor knew held them fast in the chains of their lies. Still many more will choose to remain in their dark boxes they locked their hearts and minds in, having thrown away the key for their pride and lies. These are those who war against anything they perceive as a threat to their own delusions, self-destruction, and self-deception. These also happen to be those who seek to keep others locked in boxes with them in the same state of bondage and despair, ever projecting on them their controlling expectations and systems of control through means of deception and domination. Outside the box or locked in the box of shadows. Since my birth, I have shunned the boxes held out to me by those who long ago locked themselves inside of their own boxes. These also threw away the key to them. The key to their lock is the truth. This is why they see truth as a lie and lies as their truth. This is also why the truth has the stench of death to them, for it reminds them of the realm which they chose to inhabit, and one day will see their book covers too. They are pitiful creatures who are at once slaves and enslavers of others. All they have is in the temporary, and as you know, the temporary is, well, temporary for a reason. So answer me this. Who points to their shadow on the ground and says, "There I am"? Yet that is in fact what most people do in how they live. They live in the shadows of the light rather than the light, which casts the shadow to the ground. This is in effect denying truth in order to serve a lie. They prefer the darkness of the shadow to that of the real. They prefer that darkness of the shadow to the real rather than the actual real thing which casts the shadow. Now, how absurd is this? Would one go to a 5-star restaurant, order an exquisitely prepared meal, and when it was brought out, ignore it to eat the shadow of it? Would you rather have the shadow of the sports car or the actual sports car which can actually give you the enjoyment of driving it and getting somewhere? Yet this is precisely what so many do when they accept the counterfeit of the real. They accept that counterfeit of the given thing rather than the genuine thing itself because they are deceived. They are in a lie. What if I told you that this world is in fact the shadow of an actual one, that you have to let go of this one and all that it offers to gain the genuine one? And what if I told you that if you did so, you would get the temporary one, this one that you think is all that there is, thrown in as a promise of what is to come after this one has served its purpose? Most would scoff at the prospect because they cannot see past the allure of the shadow long enough to catch a glimpse of the one which far exceeds what this one has to offer. Yet they would say unabashedly that it was the only rational choice, and that even my proposition is an outright absurdity. Now, who is actually being absurd here? He who offers the real thing, or he who denies it and chooses the shadow of the real thing? Would you rather invest your money and time and effort in the shadow of a potentially profitable endeavor, or would you rather invest in the actual thing which would actually be profitable?